Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to introduce you to romance. So I was inspired to do this video. I always say inspired. I'm not really inspired. I decided to make this video because I wanted to show you guys the different categories of romance. In my last video where I was telling you guys about the sexiest books that I've read this year, a lot of you guys mentioned that you'd never read Smut before or that you were really interested in romance but you didn't really know where to start. So I decided that I was going to break up the different categories that I read or the ways in which I conceptualize romance, because not all books are the same, and I know that there are varying levels of comfort that people have with romance, and some people want to get into certain types of romance, but they don't know where to start. So without further ado, I have 4 categories. This is in no way an exhaustive list of all of the subgenres of romance, but I just thought that I would give you a little bit of an overview of what there is out there, give you some suggestions and things to look out for so you can maybe discern whether or not a book is going to be for you before you pick it up. So the first category that I have for you guys is contemporary romance. These books tend to focus a lot on the romantic development of the characters, and they usually only suggest sex. When I say suggest, kind of like TV. You'll see maybe like feet peeking out of sheets, you might see some making out, and you might see half naked bodies, but you're not seeing actual nudity or anything graphic. So that's kind of what I consider contemporary romance to be. And the difference between contemporary romance and just a contemporary can be kind of blurry, but for me, what really separates them is the fact that contemporary romance focuses primarily on the romantic relationships in the story and not so much personal development or like familial relations or any other sort of like relationships. The romance is the star of the show. I don't really read a lot of books in this category. There are a ton out there. Some people like to call this category chick lit, which I do often, and I don't particularly love this category of books because they tend to be lacking in details that I enjoy. That being said, I think it's kind of a gateway into other sorts of romantic books and can be a good way to like dip your toes into the water without going full force into Bangtown. One of my favorite books this year actually happened to fall into this category, and I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it, and it's Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I absolutely loved this book for a lot of different reasons, but I really did like the romantic development that happened in the relationship. I liked how the characters got together, and I didn't feel unsatisfied that there wasn't any sex in the book. So the next category is kind of a catch-all. It's kind of a bucket for everything sexy, and that is what I just consider to be romance. A lot of books on Goodreads are shelved as romance when they're actually erotica or they're actually contemporary romance, but romance is kind of its own thing, and while a lot of different things can fit in the bucket of romance, to me it is a pretty narrowly defined thing. And what really separates this from other categories is that romantic development is at the forefront of the story, and pretty much all other relationships are put in the very back. No one cares about anyone else except for the 2 people that are banging, and the people that are banging only care about each other. And did I say banging because there is can't talk today, god damn it. There is explicit sex in these books. I think it's very much up to the author, and I think that's something that's kind of changed over time. I feel like back in the day, romance was something that was very hush-hush, where there'd be a lot of euphemism, but there wasn't actually explicit sex. Most romances nowadays do. Obviously, the discretion's up to the author, but we do have truly descriptive things that some people could consider to be erotica, but to me, erotica is a totally different thing. So to me, if there is explicit sex, there's focus on the romantic relationship as the primary focus, there just happens to be sex in it, it's a romance. Does that make sense? We've got romantic relationships, we've got a tiny bit of sex, it's romance. That's the category. This category tends to be the biggest, the most diverse. It has so many different things in it that I enjoy. You've got new adult, paranormal, I don't know. There's so many categories. So many categories. You've got relatively wholesome books like The Hating Game, which again is different than a regular contemporary romance because there is explicit depictions of sex in it, but you also have a variety of other things that are kinky or dark or whatever. There's a ton of different things in this general catch-all, and that's probably why it is my most read. Some suggestions in here for you guys are just some books that I've read over the years that weren't necessarily books that I read in 2018. Suggestion number 1 is a slow burn romance, and I think it's a really, really good introduction into the romance category because the sex is not gratuitous or overdone. Culty by Mariana Zapata. This is one of my favorite books. There's an age gap element, there's a slow burn element, and it is just amazing. Also, it's a sports romance, kind of like the main character plays soccer, so highly recommend it as a way to kind of transition into reading sexier books. I also really like this book called Rock by Anita Sunday. It's a gay friends to lovers type story, and it is beautiful and really poignant, and I just love it. Another book that I really enjoy is a rock star romance, and it revolves around rock stars So I really enjoyed Managed by Kristen Callahan and all of the Idols series. Also, if you're looking for a good paranormal series, I am still in the year of our Lord 2018 addicted to the BDB series. If you wanted Twilight to be sexier and you wanted your vampires to be warriors, you gotta read J.R. Ward's BDB series. Honestly, that series kind of introduced me to romance in the first place. I remember reading it in high school and just being like, oh, this is what I was missing my whole life. I really love those books. The next category is erotica. It's such a weird word to say out loud, and it is such a misunderstood category, I feel like. So for me, romantic development is definitely taking place in erotica, but the sexual relationship is at the forefront of these books. There tends to be more sexual scenes. There tends to be more varied types of sex, if that makes sense. Things that tend to be more taboo or more, I don't know, just gratuitous. Things that need more description tend to fall into the erotica category. BDSM and erotica are not necessarily synonymous, but a lot of the times BDSM books will fall into the erotica category. And if we're being basic, you can think of 50 Shades. 50 Shades is definitely something that I would consider to be erotica. There are a lot of sexual scenes in it. There's a BDSM element, and the relationship there is really primarily based on sex. That's kind of what we're getting from it. You're not gonna get any sweet, sweet lovemaking, so if that's your thing, maybe stay away from the erotica category. My favorite recommendation for this category is something that I think does a way better job at representing the BDSM community than the 50 Shades of Grey series, and that is the original Sinners series by Tiffany Reisz, or Tiffany Rice. I don't know how to actually say her name. This series focuses on a woman named Nora as she is writing her kind of semi-autobiographical book about this lover that jilted her and kind of the events that have led her through her life. And it's supposed to be fictionalized, but it's very obvious that these things have actually happened to her. She ends up falling for her editor. She also ends up falling for her assistant, and she also develops a new relationship with the lover that jilted her. So you've got a bunch of different threads, a bunch of different timelines, because it's kind of told in the past and also the present. And it's just something that is very unique and very nuanced. I really enjoyed the books. I haven't read all of them. I think I read the first 3 or 4. Seriously in love with the characters and how the character development takes place. That's one of my favorite series in this category. It's probably one of the only series that I would recommend because I just haven't read a lot of erotica. And then the last category of books for you guys is smut. And I know I use this word and I throw it around a lot, but if you look up the dictionary definition of smut, it basically just means sexually explicit or just generally explicit content. Most of these categories of books could be considered smutty, you know, as an adjective. But to me, smut is actually a specific category of book, very niche, if that makes sense in the romance community, but books that are solely based on sex. We started from contemporary romance, where it was basically all about the romantic development, and then you get to smut and it's literally just about the sex. Very little plot, if any. It's basically just explicit sex with maybe a funny backstory, or the characters meet in the first couple pages and then they just kind of get to business. These books tend to be really short, either like 100 or 150 pages, and like I said, lots of gratuitous sex. Exposition, plot, never heard of her. I usually do not read these type of books, primarily because I do like some development in my books, whether it's character or relationship or plot. I need some development, and there's not a whole lot of that in actual what I consider to be smut. Earlier this year though, I did attempt to find some of the most ridiculous smut that I could via Kindle Unlimited, and I did find this amazing gem of a book called Back River Quiver by Jessica Kane and Alexa Riley. If you ever see the name Alexa Riley, or I guess Jessica Kane as well, it's gonna be smut. They're gonna be 100, 150 pages. They're gonna be sexy. Back River Quiver is about a guy who saves a girl from an alligator attack and brings her back to his swamp so she can be his swamp angel. It is funny as fuck. I read it to my boyfriend and he laughed his ass off. I would highly recommend it for a good laugh. I think everybody should give this category a try if they haven't, because I just think the books in this category are just something else, and I think it's something you should try. So that's pretty much it. Those are the 4 main categories of romance. You got contemporary romance, you got romance, erotica, smut. That pretty much covers it, in my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was in some way helpful. I'm going to leave links in my description for all of the books that I mentioned, and maybe give you guys some more suggestions of books in each category in case you want to dive right in. But again, you can also just check out my Goodreads in general if you want to see kind of books that I read and have recommended. Tell me what kind of videos you want to see. I want to know if you guys want more smutty content, or you guys want more like wholesome YA content. Just let me know. Love you guys. Until next time.